Hi, my name is Safi Hasani, and today I'm going to be discussing my project for representation in games. My project is encompassing and discussing the representation of Middle Eastern people in video games. More specifically, I want to look at how Western developers represent the Middle East and its people and its history, modern events, modern history specifically, in their games. The reason why I chose Western developers is because I grew up myself in the West and have seen how Western perspectives on the Middle East through media and news, movies, television have impacted my own life growing up as a Middle Eastern person. So I do want to see how these viewpoints are reflected in the games that I grew up playing and the games that many other people play. Throughout my research, I noticed the variety of tools and viewpoints Western developers carried. Oftentimes, Western developers would put Middle Eastern characters through trauma, such as Farah from Call of Duty Modern Warfare. The developers oftentimes put her through traumatic experiences in order to make the character relate to her more so compared to her Western male counterparts in the game. Um, Oftentimes, Middle Eastern characters have white counterparts in their games. Seeing right here, Alex from Modern Warfare is Farah's white Middle Eastern counterpart, and oftentimes is with her in missions. Developers also use the geography and the aesthetic of the Middle East a lot of the time, whether it's the architecture of the Middle East influencing level design, the music adding artistic cues to levels and story beats, or it could even be something just as simple as the natural landscape as seen in Spec Ops The Line that influences the gameplay and the design of games. Viewpoints wise, developers often carry colonial and militaristic viewpoints when creating representations of the Middle East. These viewpoints can be very dangerous and oftentimes are imperialistic. The viewpoints I'm looking at are from a majority of Western developers because I want to see how political events in the Middle East have affected their viewpoints. And finally, I want to look at Middle Eastern authors and critics and see what they think about these games. Several findings really quickly. Call of Duty 2019, the Western developers said that Middle Eastern characters are hard to empathize with. They said this directly about Farah, one of the protagonists in the game, and that's why they put her through so much traumatic experiences that the player actually controlled her in. The Middle East is often portrayed as an underdeveloped and helpless place. Oftentimes, Middle Eastern countries are under some sort of invasive force or under some uh, fascist reign, whether it be a religious regime or whether it be a foreign power. Um, so then the Western people, usually Western militaries, need to come in and save the day. Finger quotes. um, Moving forward, Middle Eastern characters are oftentimes heroes or villains to further a specific Western-based narrative. Call of Duty Modern Warfare has Farah and her brother. Both of them are hero. One is a hero, one is a villain, respectively. However, they both have the same motive, which is to free their home country. However, they both go about it in different ways. Farah siding with Western people, while her brother does not. And because of that, he is portrayed as a villain, pushing this narrative that Western intervention is best for the Middle East. I started playing Spec Ops The Line. I did not finish it, and I do know that a lot of these points and findings that I have are kind of flipped on its head when you play the game a little bit more. However, so far, I found that Middle Eastern people are shown as desperate. Spec Ops takes place in a city ravaged by a natural disaster, and because of that, the people there, the refugees, are incredibly desperate to the point of attacking middle soldiers stationed in the Middle East, Western soldiers. The next point is that the Western military knows what's best for Middle Eastern people. The squad in the game oftentimes talks about how they know best for the people, how they're trying to help the people, and how they don't understand why they're being attacked. Kind of pushing this narrative that the West knows what is best for the Middle East. And finally, the Middle Eastern people are often cannon fodder enemies. I know further along in Spec Ops, you start fighting Western soldiers yourself, and that is seen as a very dramatic tonal and narrative change in the story. However, it does draw away from the fact that you were fighting Middle Eastern people for the beginning of the entire game, and because of that, they're seen and they're minimized. Their presence in the game is made less important. So for the work that I want to do, I want to continue playing more games. I want to find more first-person accounts of development, like I did for Modern Warfare. I want to specifically ask players of these games what they view of the Middle East, how they look at its people, its culture, its history, and see how these games could have influenced that. And ultimately, I want to draw a conclusion on how Middle Eastern representation should be approached in games, how Middle Eastern people should be represented, and so on. So, I originally planned on using NYU's resources, specifically the games library, for a lot of my research. I was going to ask people there playing games for a class how they felt about Middle Eastern people, ask them about what games they played, what kind of person they are, their political views, just to get a overall idea on the kind of gamers that play these games and what their views are. However, now that I can't, I'm going to be probably transitioning to online surveys. That may not work out depending on how many people actively participate in them. But I just want to share an online survey to see specifically what gamers like, how they view the Middle East. I want to also take analytics on these people. So I want to see the trends between, say, someone's age demographic and how they view the Middle East, seeing if they grew up in a post 9/11 world or grew up before 9/11. I want to see people's political views and how that can impact it. I want to see if, casual mobile gamers are more likely to know more or less about the Middle East. Just get a handful of data and see what I could take away from that. I want to compare these findings with how developers portray the Middle East. If someone views the Middle East with respect, it doesn't necessarily reflect the way the games they play portray the Middle East. How is it different? And also, now that I am doing remote research, I can actually focus maybe a little bit less on games specifically, more so broadly on culture, and see what else could affect someone's specific perception of the Middle East, specifically news and other forms of media. Um, and then, if possible, interview game developers, if possible. Thank you.